Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Yesterday I brought my Dwarf Schefflera out from the plant room outside for the first time this year. Tonight we're getting a really cold night, possible frost and even freezing temperatures. So I'm going to keep it out here in the greenhouse with the heat on. That should get it through these cold days coming up, and then it's going to warm up once again. So today I'm going to start by defoliating the tree. All these leaves on the tree are indoor leaves. They were grown indoors in lower light levels. And when you move indoor leaves to outdoors, they burn. You can put the tree in the shade and maybe get the leaves used to outdoor light, but it takes a long time. So a lot of people here in Canada, before they put the trees outside, they just defoliate them totally, put them in the full sun, and then all the new leaves that grow in are hardy outdoor leaves that can take the full sun. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to defoliate the tree, prune it up, and then let it grow in for the summer. All right, let the defoliation begin. So I will prune it away, leaving just a little bit of the leaf petiole or leaf stalk on the tree, just enough so I can see where the leaf was, and that will help me with my directional pruning that will be coming later this afternoon. So all these leaves were grown indoors and they're not so good looking. Leaves that are grown indoors are always larger because of the reduced light levels. You know, unless you have really high-powered indoor grow lights, you're always going to get large leaves, loose, not compact growth. And yeah, the trees will grow, but all that growth is almost unusable because it's so coarse. So generally what I do is I let the tree grow over the winter, defoliate it, prune it back, and then all that new growth coming in will be outdoors, compact, small leaf size, and the leaves can take the full sun. So now in order to do this, you have to make sure your tree is healthy. If you have a weak tree and you do this defoliation and then put it out in the sun, it could kill the tree if it's too weak. So you have to make sure your tree is healthy before you do this operation. I have a lot of new aerial roots forming on the tree, and when I defoliate it, they'll be exposed to the full sun and they could dry out more quickly than if it had a canopy above it. So I'll have to make sure I keep them well misted. I'll have to keep the tree in the greenhouse to keep it humid in order for those aerial roots to stay alive and eventually touch the soil surface and root and grow. As I'm doing the defoliation here, I'm looking for insects, checking if the tree had scale on it. If it did, I'm disposing of these leaves in the compost heap outdoors, and I'll spray the whole tree with soap and water. I've already given it one spraying with the soap and water before I brought it in the greenhouse here, but if I see more scale insects on it, I'll give it a second spray and I will scrape all those scale insects off. So trying to avoid bringing scale insects here into the greenhouse. That's my objective. I am getting down to the last few leaves for defoliation, so here I go. So there were some scale insects on some of them, but not everything. So it was quite a mild case of scale insects, which is good. It wasn't out of control or anything. So I will spray the whole tree down with soap and water again, just to, make sure there's no scale insects in here. Take all my spiders out. I think it's totally defoliated, yeah. And then we'll have a look and see what is revealed on the tree, which is a lot. All right, here I go with the soap and water. So I'll spray down the tree. Starting kind of low, pointing up. Then coming above and spraying down. And this will kill any crawling scale insects that are left on the tree. Okay, so that's got it. I will let that sit for a few minutes and then I'll rinse it off thoroughly. All right, it's time to rinse the tree off. I've let it sit for about 4 minutes. So here I go, starting at the top here. I'll get another second watering can to thoroughly rinse all the soap out of the soil and off the branches. And then any scale blisters I see as I'm pruning the tree today, I will scrape off and respray with the soap and water to make sure there's nothing alive except the tree. Okay, I think that'll do it. I mentioned the defoliation was very revealing. Let's go in now and have a look and see what was revealed. Let's fly in now, and the first thing I want you to look at is the growth rates. So you can see all the green shoots is the new growth from the last time it was pruned, and you can see the differences in vigor. So for instance, this shoot on top of the tree here is super vigorous. You can see it's thick, it's green, and it's long. Compare that to a shoot down here, which is shorter, it's thinner, and just generally less vigorous looking. So I want to, when I prune it, I want to keep that in mind, that these, vigorous, strong shoots can be pruned back more, and the weaker shoots will be left. So here's one down here, right here. That's, very short and compact. Other than pruning the very tip off that, I don't need to prune it back. Defoliation also revealed the branch structure. So let's go in and have a look at that now. Here we are flying in once again. So let's look at the branches from above. So you can see that there's a lot of kind of crossing branches, congestion in some areas, like here. There's a lot of branches kind of, growing over top of each other. Sometimes there's multiple branches coming from one branch, like 3 in this case. What else have we got? Some branches that shoot straight upwards, like this one, crossing tips with the other one beside it. So there's a lot of branches that are in need of pruning. Some that don't flow so well, they grow back in towards the center of the tree. That's another thing to watch out for. Some branches are long and the branch needs ramification. It needs to be shortened back, getting more branching on it. They're kind of simple looking. So that's something to avoid also. You want each trunk line to divide and divide again to get a nice dense branch structure to the tree. Now there are some areas in here that I've deliberately left congested, and one of the areas is in here. you can see the one trunk comes up and it actually, well, I don't know if it's fused, but it will fuse with the one beside it. They kind of cross each other. And that is done on purpose. And the purpose of that is to provide asymmetry to the planting. This planting would look good if it was perfectly symmetrical. But with it asymmetrical, it's even better. So I've got the main clump of trees here. They reach over, then it's dropped these thick aerial roots on this side. And I've almost got like a second tree over here that's beginning to grow and dominate. So it's a nice look. It's something a banyan tree does in nature. It just keeps spreading and spreading and spreading longer and longer with all these aerial roots that drop down, which are called prop roots, which hold the branches and feed them. And these branches can grow for kilometers. They can just keep spreading. So it's very typical of a banyan style to have this kind of a structure. So I really like it because it provides asymmetry and it also provides interest. You know, this part of the tree, you can understand the branch structure, it fans out. This part of the tree, it's almost weaving together and it's very interesting to look at all that tangle of trunks and branches. Yeah, it provides another focal point to the tree. I'm stepping back, having a look at the tree from the distance now. So one thing that concerns me about this planting is that the longer or wider I get this tree, because the branches and trunks get longer, they look skinnier, because you can imagine if I prune this back really compact, the trunks would look really short, thick, and powerful. As you let the tree grow, the branches get longer and longer, and they give the appearance of a skinnier trunk. So somewhere in there, there's a balance, and I'm wondering if I'm getting too large with this planting. I have it in a big training pot to stretch those roots out and give it lots of vigor. I may show this tree this fall, so it would go back into a ceramic pot, a smaller ceramic pot. And yeah, I'm wondering if it's just getting too wide for the thickness of the trunks, that maybe I've got to prune it back fairly hard, let it grow again, and keep doing that so these trunks get thicker before I can get the entire planting wider. Overall on the tree, the canopy is getting out of shape. It's supposed to be like a shallow umbrella shaped canopy to it, but you can see now it's, well, the highest point is over here now, over top of that kind of secondary tree structure. It's too long over the edges. It's lost that umbrella shape. So that's something else I could restore. Now I also have to decide this structure over here, all these new twisty trees. Do I want to interrupt that? So instead of a smooth umbrella canopy to this, maybe I start breaking it up. So maybe there's like a canopy over the main section, another canopy over here, another one here. So it's broken up into small umbrella shaped canopies instead of one large one. So that's another thing I have to consider with the pruning. I also have to keep in mind with this tree is that I have to watch the aerial roots. Some of them are really thickening up, becoming almost trunks themselves. And I have to decide, is that something I want? Do I want the focus going on those thick aerial roots, or do I want to prune them off and start smaller ones? Or do I want to prune them and then start the thick aerial root sort of subdividing in midair and reaching down as smaller ones? There's a lot of possibilities with aerial roots as far as styling them, so I've got to keep that in mind as I work on the tree today also. My next step for the tree is to clean up all the debris that's fallen down. You can see where all the leaves have fallen down over the winter. So I need to get that all cleaned up before I start the pruning. I'm going to leave the pruning of the Schefflera to part 2 of this video. I don't want to rush into the pruning, trying to get it done this afternoon. I also want to study the video of this tree, checking out the structure and maybe getting some ideas for future styling, how large I want the tree, the shape of the canopy, and all that kind of work. I may even bring it into Photoshop and try out a few different ideas. I'm going to spend the afternoon cleaning up underneath the tree here, all the debris off the soil surface. And I promised I'd show you some updates here in the greenhouse. I was away all weekend at the Toronto Bonsai Society's show, and there's been lots of changes in the greenhouse, so I'll show you those now. Let's start off over here in the right-hand corner. So my cherry tree has red cherries on it. So they're starting to ripen up. Now these are edible, and I will try them once they've ripened up a little more. So that's kind of exciting. I gave my bald cypress quite a root pruning this spring, and it leafed out and recovered, but you can see it's not growing with a ton of vigor. So I imagine it's generating roots, and it'll put on a growth spurt probably, well, maybe later on in the summer. But it's definitely looking healthy and growing. It's just not super vigorous. I do have it in a tray of water. So whenever that water evaporates or gets sucked up by the plant, I replace it. My Chinese elm here continues to grow really well. It hasn't stopped growing. The tips just keep extending, which is kind of nice. Some trees just, they grow a certain length and they sit there dormant for a long time, and then they maybe put on another spurt of growth. Some don't at all. Some just put on one spurt of growth per season. But the Chinese elm just seems to continuously grow, which is kind of amazing. So that will need some branch selection and pruning later on, so that will be coming. Beside that is my giant sequoia forest, and they have started to grow. If you look at the tips of the trees, you can see they're putting on growth. And it's very similar to that needle-like growth of a juniper. So I haven't seen any growth coming from the branches below, which is a little concerning because I'm sure if I left them alone, it would just drop all the lower branches. So what I need to do is when these shoots get a little more extension, I will pinch them back, hoping to put some growth down lower, some vigor down lower into the lower branches. Well, actually there's one of these lower branches has a little bud at the tip. So that's good, and there's some back budding on the trunk, but that's something to keep in mind with these. I've got to keep the vigor balanced. Over here I have my Ficus microcarpa, my Vietnam style one. So I pruned this back earlier in the year, and now you can see it exploding in new growth all over. You can see the new tiny little leaves. So that's exciting. Managing the growth, keeping this tree super miniature. My euphorbia here, the one they call killer, has some new growth coming in the center there. I was a little worried about it. I wasn't seeing any new growth, and some of the bottom leaves were dying off. But it seems, once I've got it outside here in the heat of the greenhouse and the sunlight, it seems to be growing. So that's exciting. My crown of thorns over here, which is also a euphorbia, is growing really, really well. It sure loves the sunshine. So I'm getting all kinds of back budding, and the foliage is looking really good. So I don't prune it. I just let it grow over the summer, and then it flowers. The whole crown becomes flowers. So I only prune this once a year, and that seems to do it quite nicely. Behind that is my Brazilian rain tree. I pruned that up on a previous video, and now there's all kinds of new growth coming in and back budding. So you can see the back buds on the branches here. It's filling in once again, looking really, really good. So that's exciting. My tiger aloes here in the Sarah Rayner pot are growing really well. There's new growth coming out up top. The lower leaves, they got a little sunburned at first. They kind of changed the color, but now they're greening up once again. And I found this in the past. They almost turn brown from sunburn, but then they green up again. They recover, which is amazing. I think it's the only plant I've seen that does that. So it's kind of exciting. So they're really growing. I'm going to have to prune off these lower leaves, just leaving a tuft of new foliage up top, so I have room for all these plants in this pot. Over in this corner, I have a lot of succulents. My baobabs, or baobabs, are really growing well. You can see the largest one is leafing out. I've got growth down the trunk. So it's really, really doing well. I'm very happy with the baobabs. The other two are doing really well too. Now I water these, I water and fertilize them about every second day. So once the tree has leaves, and this is the case with many succulents, you can water them and fertilize them as any other tree. It's in a very porous soil, which stays moist all the time. So yeah, kind of watering and fertilizing them, hoping I get really strong growth this year. Behind that is my desert rose, my Socotra Island landscape, and all the desert rose are beginning to leaf out. So that's very, very exciting that it's all coming to life. Now I've got to be careful in this landscape. It's nice to have them leaf out, but I don't want rampant growth. Like I can't let these desert rose like double their size. I have to keep them small and miniature and in scale with the landscape. So I'm going to have to really watch the watering and fertilizing to keep them small. I just can't let them grow wild or they'll grow huge, and I don't want that. I want to keep them small and miniature. My aloe here is continuing to flower, so I hope I can focus in on that. Let me zoom in. Where are we here? Right here. I don't know if it'll focus on the flower, but there it is. It's starting to open up the flower, so that's exciting. The aloe over here, it got repotted in one of Sophie's pots this year, and it has a lot of new growth up top. Some of the lower leaves now are starting to go brown. So it's replacing the lower leaves with new growth up top. And I'm hoping once I strip off those lower leaves that I get light to the bottom and I get new pups forming so I can reduce the height of it. So I can gradually work these trunks down to make the tree more compact. My Ficus lyrata here is growing really, really well. The trunk is thickening. I'm getting better root flare at the bottom, at the base of the tree. And the leaf size isn't ridiculous on the new growth. You can see the size of the leaf compared to the, the old growth. And if you compare this to the size of a tree growing in a large pot, this is very small for a Ficus lyrata. My lemon tree here looks fantastic, really healthy. This is all new growth on it. It's leafed out beautifully. The leaf color is not bad. It's a little light in color. So I think maybe a little more fertilizer will help that. But it's looking really, really healthy. I'm so happy with the growth of the lemon tree. Over here, the lavender from Zin's place is in flower. So here it is here. It looks really nice. Let's me smell it. Oh, it smells really nice too. So that's exciting. My hibiscus tree down here, my old hibiscus, is starting to leaf out now. So this is exciting too. You can see the new leaves coming on it. So that'll be really nice to see it back in leaf. Outside here on the benches, everything is doing really well. These willows here, I have them in a tray. And I fill the tray, I put 2 liters of water in it every day, and the willows use it. They use 2 liters of water every day for these 2 trees. Amazing, they're very thirsty trees. You might hear a robin over here. So I think the robin has a nest in the hedge. And whenever I'm watering my trees here, the robin over here, hi Robin, over here, hello. Hi, he dive bombs me, and it's kind of scary, but so far there's been no damage. He doesn't hit me or anything. He just flies close to my head and scares me. So yeah, so that's what happens every day when I water the trees. I get dive bombed by the robin. There he just flew by me now. Okay, I'm leaving. I'm leaving. I'm leaving. I'm leaving. I'm leaving. I'll show you my Austrian pine over here. You can see all the new growth coming in on it. So the little tiny tufts of needles, lots of back budding. So flower petals off the pear tree there. Yeah, so it's looking really, really good. Very nice. The European buckthorn is doing well again. I did forget to take the aphids off it, but now I see there's a ladybug on it right there, who's taking all the aphids off for me, so that's good. I see some ants here farming the aphids. So hopefully the ladybugs will clean them all up. I just, I forgot to get that done before the show, and yeah, my mind was elsewhere. So sorry, European buckthorn. My Osage orange forest is doing really well here. You'll notice I have the back of the forest to the sunlight, and that gives all the trees light. And then if I turn it around here, it keeps the front of the forest open. So it looks very inviting to come in here for a walk through the Osage orange forest. Spring is such an exciting time of the year. You see so many changes to the trees. So I'll work away this afternoon cleaning up the landscape, and then we'll come back tomorrow for pruning up the tree in part 2. So that's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.